problems. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I won't go into these problems because each one of them, I feel they are symptoms, and but we do need to look at them, but they do require a special sessions. Yeah, like all of these peer pressure and bullying is very common now. But schools, I know in Bradford, just a few months ago, I think a few weeks ago, one child committed suicide, but many children are committing suicide is because of this bullying. So schools are putting in a lot of policies, begin to understand this and trying to create a culture to root out bullying. But it requires not only a school culture, but it does require a culture change at home and also within the wider neighborhood and community. Yeah. So all of these things are there. So now let's look at some of these issues more closely. If you look at our young, and I'm a grandfather now, my children have all grown up and they've got children as well. And looking at them and looking at the youth work I have been involved in, there is clearly now our youth are under extra pressure than the mainstream society. They are put pressure on two sides. One is from their parent side and their community, that this is the ideal Muslim. And then there is a pressure from society that this is what the ideal youth is. So how do they keep, both cultures, both pressures, both sides happy? And what's happening, some of them are developing inconsistencies and inner conflicts. In front of their parents, they are different. In front of their friends and mainstream, they are different. So they are, and that is having a psychological impact on the young people. So that's really a powerful, pressure which is on our young. And that's in addition to, their peer pressure. There are so many opportunities now for immoral actions, moral behaviors, to be like the majority. They are being pulled and pushed in different direction. So without the help of parents, good parenting, without this community support, you will not be able to address many of the problems. So time is running fast. I'll just quickly look at a holistic integrated approach. So if you look at some of these problems, if in the West, in our societies, we will see whole range of courses, on depression, on self-esteem, on addiction, on alcohol abuse, drug abuse, all of these things. There's huge number of, but again, like I said, they use a reductionist approach and they try to look at each issue in isolation to the wider issues, which are causing all of these problems. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the Islamic approach. Now, the general issues facing the youth today are in fact mostly symptoms, and something else, the cause of these is something different. Now, that's where we can have a debate, we can have a discussion on. So I feel that they are symptoms, because if my generation didn't, now some can argue, or they were suppressed in my generation. Mental problems were suppressed. So people were not, yes, I agree, they were suppressed to some extent, but I strongly believe they were not as widespread as they are today. Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. Anyway, let's look at it. Now, how did the Sahaba, if you look at the society at that time, a very immoral society, youth were free to do a lot of things. And then the same Sahaba coming out of this very society, they developed a counterculture. How did they do it? So that's the question, I'm trying to put forward. Maybe we need to go back to those roots and those sources and find solutions from there. If those young people, if you look at the Sahaba, vast majority were young people in their teens, early 20s, late 20s. Very few were in their 30s or in their 40s. Yeah, even the Prophet ﷺ, was just 40. Just and Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radiallahu Ta'ala Anhu was about 38. So they were all young people. How did they create this powerful counterculture which inspired all the generation to come? Yeah, there was something there. So look at the case studies of young people who managed to come out of this gang culture and bad ways. What helped them? For example, I've looked at many gangs which we were part of when we were young, unfortunately, and which we've seen over the last 30, 40 years. People who became so bad in drugs and alcohol and ending up in prison and all kinds of things. Suddenly, over a few years, they were radically changed. So something happened. So I try to look at these case studies and ask myself, what was it? So if there's a big bang solution, a comprehensive solution to save our young people, maybe we will find it from such sources. Yeah, youth, for example, Hazrat Musa bin Umair radiallahu ta'ala anhu was from a Arab Makkan culture. He had the latest fashion, very rich family, could do whatever he wanted. Suddenly accepted Islam, his whole thinking, his vision, his behavior, his life priorities, within a very short time, radically changed. Did not go on these anti-depression courses or anti-addiction courses or anything like that. There's something happened. So that's we need to think through. Yeah. So when I look at all of this, we find that the key the key ingredients of all of this uh, was that these people suddenly had a change of vision. They discovered a new purpose. They were given a new direction, and they felt this new sense of responsibility. Yeah. When you look at all of these case studies, there will be a combination of some of these ingredients. Throughout history, what has changed people is not training, is not education in the secular reductionist sense, but more by affecting people's hearts. Yeah. And that was the transformation. Yeah. So he brought them out of this short-term pleasures, short-term thinking, short-term gains, to reflect on their purpose and the long-term consequences. So let's look at these things now. So good parenting and good teachers, first of all, they have to take interest in the young people, and they have to make them their friends. So like the Prophet ﷺ said, when they are 7, you get them to pray with you. When they are 10, you show some kind of firmness. When they reach adulthood, then you make them your friends. By friends, it means children should be able to discuss anything they want with yourselves. Yeah, it should be that kind of open culture, because if they cannot discuss with you, then sorry, if they cannot discuss things with you, then they will go to others, and then they may get wrong guidance. Yeah. Also, what I've learned, instead of courses, I've learned that storytelling is one of the most powerful way to influence the young people. This is why the Quran Majid uses a lot of stories. If you look at Hazrat Isa al-Islam in the Bible, a lot of stories are used. Stories have a lasting impact because they reach the hearts. Yes, stories of great heroes, stories of great people, role models. What we do at the graduation ceremony at the Markville Institute, we try to bring people um, who can give a talk to inspire the graduates to reach high. For example, one person we brought, I won't mention his name. He's an MP now in the UK. He messed around at school, didn't end up with any qualification, became a bus driver, and then miracle happened. Because of the family arranged marriages, his wife was very educated, and so she pushed him towards education. She paid for his education. He then went back to college, did his basic qualification, then joined university, became a lawyer, and then he practiced law. But he started to join politics, became a counselor, slowly became the mayor of one of the largest cities in the UK. Then he became a European MP, and now he not only become a UK MP, but he's also in the shadow cabinet. Again, he's my age. He grew up, and he was also, the radical change also took place through our young Muslims, and so on. So storytelling of these people is so important. um, so what these stories do, they try to build confidence that if these people can reach something high, achieve some great thing, we can also. Yeah, it builds confidence in people, and that's what the youth need. Secondly, these stories communicate value. These stories help to educate. These stories are very powerful means of tarbiyah. Yeah. So parents need to build confidence. They need to regularly communicate, educate, and they need to give their young responsibility at a very early age. I saw signs in my own, children at a young age, the influence of society. So I understood the value of responsibility. I told my wife as well, give them as much work as we can, make them responsible, and that will occupy their hearts and minds as well. So, I got my son involved in the garden, looking after my car, and a lot of other things, in addition to getting them involved in community projects, giving them something small to do. All of this will shape their hearts and minds and their character. And also, stories provide some kind of mission, that these great people, they had a goal, they focused on the goal, and they did not let anything distract them. So again, this is very powerful means, to develop a counter youth culture, teenage culture. Yeah. Also, parents need to provide them with a good environment, because no matter how much tarbiyah we do of our children, they are going to play with their friends and with their networks. They learn a lot from their friends, their networks, their schools. So parents need to not keep the children with them all the time, but put them into good environments, usually youth groups. Give them a group life which has a goal or work or task. Plant a vision in their mind. There's a very well saying which I invented, but it is a powerful sort of way to teach people, that there was a person, who used to do a lot of work on the tarbiyah of his son's friends, and he did not pay too much attention to his own son. And the people said, look, we see you doing a lot of encouraging your son's friends and helping them, supporting them, but you don't pay too much attention to your own son. And why is that? He said, look at my son. Is he good behavior? They said, he's very good. Is he knowledgeable? They said, he's very knowledgeable. He's well behaved. He said, it's because of his friends. If his friends were corrupt, then no matter how much I worked on my son, I would not be able to protect him much. This is why I give time to his friends as well. So, giving, not only giving them a good group life, but working with that group, developing that group, supporting that group is also important. Yeah. So these are, a sort of a starting point to open up with our young people, to move towards a different mindset and give them a different goal, which will then automatically keep them away, from, wrong things. Ustad Khurram, may Allah, have mercy on his soul, a great teacher of mine. He's published a book, a very small pamphlet, about 20 pages, on, it's called Towards an Education, Muslim Youth Towards an Education Strategy. So he reviewed the Muslim schools, but he said, and the mainstream schools, he said that let the children carry on going to the mainstream schools, but because if you isolate them, then soon as they're 16, 17, they'll explode. They will, because they feel they have missed a lot, and you will not be able to bring them towards Islam. Let them carry on and mix with the mainstream society. Islamic schools will not help them much by isolating them too much, because it will not develop the abilities in them to stand against the peer pressures. He said, what we need to develop a counter sort of environment is give them group life, get them involved in youth circles and youth environments and youth groups. It's a very powerful way. It will take away a lot of headaches of the parents. Yeah. Now, this verse which I recited at the beginning of my talk again brings a responsible parenting as well. Ku anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Sorry, time. I'll finish. Soon. Time has moved very fast. Yeah. So tarbiyah and positive environments are very powerful in saving your family. Yeah, young ones especially. Very powerful positive environments. Give them a goal. Give them projects. Keep them busy. It is so important. Yeah. So what you need to do is start thinking, how can we protect, because all these things lead to the fire of hell. Fire will occur in this life. Within the families, problems will start. Within the community, problems will start. And that is like fire as well. And it will burn all of us. Negative emotions, hatreds, jealousies, and doing things for show, looking good in front of other people, insincerities. How do you protect the young people? Negative behaviors, negative action, because all of these lead to the fire. Yeah. So part of your upbringing, part of your tarbiyah, part of your nurturing them, you have to protect them from these negative emotions, which will save them from the fire. The other thing is, to save them, you need to save them from negative environments, because negative environments provide negative influences. So keep an eye on their friends, keep an eye on what is happening in the schools. Yeah. And try to provide them with positive environments, and also protecting them from ill health, because ill health is sometimes not only physical, because ill health also leads to negative emotions and behaviors and actions. Sometimes people compare themselves all the time. Give them good food, give them push them towards exercise, to look after themselves. Yeah. All of this is important for a balanced human being. Yeah. And all of these negativities, the best way to address them is towards spiritual development, towards tarbiyah, prayers and fasting. Help them to understand the meanings and purpose of these things, but get them involved in the work of dawah, and nurture in them the spirit to sacrifice, to donate for good causes, to strive in for a better people and better societies and all those things. Also part of our tarbiyah framework, this verse in the Quran Majid, yatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim wa yuallimuhumul kitab wal hikmah, that Prophet ﷺ came and he taught them how to do tilawa of the signs. Tilawa doesn't mean read. Tilawa actually means to read and understand and critically reflect on. So not making them blind followers and passive listeners, but active listeners, active learners, and people who are actively critically reflecting over not only the signs of the ayat, is not only the Quranic signs, but the sun, the moon, the stars, the rise and fall of nations, historical changes. Let them reflect critically on the youth culture, on the entertainment and all those things. While you zakki him, and you do their tazkiyah, purify them, their hearts and their behavior, their character, and so on. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ, and give them the knowledge which is framed by the Quran, by the book. So if they study science, biology, chemistry, physics, obviously what they learn at schools is from very materialistic perspectives. So you come, when they come home, you also bring in like Newton's laws. Newton's laws indirectly teach us that this universe is made by God, but God is like a clockmaker God. He has now he has set these universal laws. It's like a clockmaker. He's wound the clock, now he's gone to sleep, and the universe is ticking by itself according to these universal laws. So basically, God is redundant. So if you look at in the West, they did not reject God initially, they made him redundant or irrelevant. Yeah. So when we teach knowledge, knowledge has to be framed within the Quranic, framework, Quranic guidance. Well, hikmah, teach them this wisdom. They will only learn wisdom when they work with the elders, when they engage in community problems and issues. They learn the difficulties, they learn politics, they learn everything. And that's what hikmah cannot be learned sitting in front of the TV, no matter how educational the program is. Hikmah can only be developed practically. And if they do not get involved in practical work, they will not, they will not develop that hikmah. And hikmah is a very powerful way to build in the young people, so they will self-protect themselves, and you don't have to protect them. Yeah. So basically, the whole aim of your tarbiyah is to make them conscious human beings, so that they begin to do the right things. They are not influenced negatively by anyone. They become committed human beings, because they commit themselves to follow the values and do the right things. And they also become competent human beings. Yeah, so they are constantly developing their knowledge, their skills, their abilities, so they become effective human beings and effective citizens. Yeah. Now, time is gone. I don't want to carry on, because I need time for discussion. You're all aware of these hadiths, how much stress is given on young people. So I will just skip through them. Yeah. So, but the key question is, what is the key issue facing teens? Is it really depression, anxieties, peer pressures, or is it lack of a vision, lack of something? What can we do to inspire the young, just like the Sahaba were inspired to rise above the rest and to provide leadership? If you do not prepare them for leadership, they will become followers. So you're either a leader or you are a follower. Leader doesn't mean positions, that they are elected as president or secretary. That's not leadership. You can be leader anywhere, even on a bus, on a train. You've taken some kind of initiative in the right direction. You see people, throwing papers, you just guide people. So leadership is in all areas and all levels. Okay, I will finish here. Sorry, sister, I went beyond my time. I will stop presenting, and if there are any questions or discussion.
Thank you so much. I think we were all so engraved, and we also did not realize what time is it. We have one question. I think we have few questions, but one question in the chat. Would you like me to read it for you, or?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. So Lareb has asked, how do we keep them, like teenagers, away from social media, etc., when it is everywhere? If we don't give them access to these platforms, they feel their parents are restricting them.
Yeah, sister, and this is now in our hands, and you cannot stop. Even if you take the phones away from them, teach them how to engage with social media. Yeah, rather than stopping them, teach them how to engage. For example, we do this training, in the mosque as well. Hundreds of messages, even some of them look so good, they're value based, but are they telling the truth? Because many people just cut and paste. So critically analyze the text and say, should we be influenced? Should we act on these messages? Yeah. or are there flaws in this message? Yeah. And also, like these images, they are glossed. They can produce ideal sort of images of people and so on. Real people do not look like that at all. Yeah. So teach them to understand what is artificial and what is reality, what is constructed and what is real. Yeah. So when you make them critically engage with the media, they will become self-protecting. But if you stop them, the more you stop them, the more they will want to use that media. Yeah. So, for example, I just give many parents have said, if they're watching some film with their children, they keep on pausing the film and say, okay, now this Superman was flying. Is that real? Can humans really fly? Is this a camera trick? So from a very young age, children begin to learn camera tricks, begin to learn all these things. And then, time comes when they really are not too much interested in the artificial, in the temporary, and they want to engage in real works and so on. Also, to keep them away is to provide alternatives. Now, I know many of our families are from poor backgrounds and so on, and the rich people are able to send their children on scouting and camps and a lot of things where they are learning a lot and their time, energies are being used in some other ways. But as a community, we can put our hands together and we can also provide, like in our community, decades ago, we used to have this community fund. We used to take families on trips, and we used to have camps and all kinds of things. So that also helps the young people a lot. But main thing is, now because we are in the information age, we are bombarded with all kinds of information. Is we what we do at Markfield, we have a module, and these are all ulamas. Most of them are ulamas coming and you'll be surprised how easily human mind gets influenced. Yeah. And a lot of these ulamas, they've parroted, they've learned things by heart. They have no understanding of many of the Islamic concepts and ideas. So this module is really about how to read critically, how to write critically, academic skills, how to interpret even numbers. Like, lot of statistics is false. All these numbers show that, oh, this is happening, but when you analyze the numbers, they point to something different. Yeah. So it's all the interpretation and critical. So I feel our communities do need to spend a lot of time, on these sort of things. Okay.
I have one more question from the chat. Somebody has asked about bullying a teen girl about her skin tone. How can I satisfy her?
Yeah, no, this bullying is well rooted, like I said, in schools. And in the UK, I know, I don't know about other countries, but government and the schools have really taken a very big steps, towards eradicating all forms of bullying, whether it is physical or whether it is emotional bullying. Yeah. So every school has policies, but the main thing is, a lot of this happens without the teachers being aware, or the children don't have the confidence to speak to. This is why, if you become friends of your children, you establish this strong communication with them, you look for early signs. If this is happening, then show zero tolerance for bullying. Then if it's happening in the school environment, obviously using wisdom and making sure that it doesn't increase, you need to talk and bring it to the attention of the teachers, and the teacher should be aware you are monitoring this carefully. Yeah. So that it can be eradicated very quickly. But also, main thing is, the biggest sort of thing which opens doors for bullying is the lack of confidence in those who are being bullied. Yeah, is to build this confidence. And like we have taught in our communities, and in fact this is a reality. And I don't know about boy, I think girls may not realize this because it affects them more. And this is a reality. I'm talking from my 60 years experience, that beauty is inner beauty is more powerful, more lasting than anything else. Yeah, the physical beauty comes and goes, it changes over time. Many people, they stay married, it's because of the real beauty. And sometimes women underestimate the power of this inner beauty, and so they focus too much on the external and they become depressed. And because of that lack of confidence, they then begin to accept this bullying, and then they become depressed, and so on. So again, this is part of our tarbiyah. Yeah, and we as a community need to do a lot of work in this area.
Okay, another question is, in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, people used to learn in a group, like beyond age limit, gender, etc. And then she has asked that why is it that now it doesn't happen in school, that the learning system has changed and now you're required to have certain age, certain gender in certain schools. So why doesn't it is it implemented now, that system?
So what was the earlier system? Different ages, different genders learn together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sister, again, you need to understand this. Again, we have inherited an education system which has become dominant in the world only recently. And this is what we call the education system. And it was based on the industrial system, a manufacturing system, that you process people and you churn out products, give them qualifications, yeah, and each year you progress. Whereas if you look at the church education system, was exactly like the Prophet ﷺ system, where men, women, and children of different ages were in the same class, but they used to look at the different learning needs, not who the people were. Yeah, and they did not have to churn people in the form of qualification. Our qualification was sunnat, and sunnat was given on the hand. It was not really a certificate. It was transformed to a certificate later on, but until the teacher was not satisfied, the child did not graduate. Now here, they are forced to be graduated by the system. So what we have done, we've created an alternative education system, like you are doing this now. We have an online study circle as well, and many mosques, they have these weekly study circles where men, women, and children are together there. And the young, I have found out that this is more powerful in doing the tarbiyah of the young people than the young people on their own. Yeah, so we do need to create these community classes again. And even if the adults don't learn much in these, by their presence, they are actually affecting the learning of the young because they are contributing in the discussions.
There's another question: how to develop their interest in Islamic history? Do you think if they do not have had interest in all their 13 years, do we still have hope that they can have interest by making friendship with them later on?
Oh, yes, sister, first of all, it's never ever too late. This is what we must understand. Even an 80-year-old child, he can always learn. Yeah. So, like I said, is to get them interested in anything, storytelling, telling them the stories of the Sahaba, telling them stories of the prophets and great role models afterwards. It really develops interest in them to learn more and more. Yeah, because then it inspires them and they want to become like these. For example, at our institute, when they finish the Alamiya course, they come to us and we usually ask them what made them study Islam. Many say, look, our parents forced us to go there, but many of them saying, look, we heard some stories, some good things, and we just wanted to learn more. And many people now in the UK, I know that it's called a gap year. When they finish their college A levels, before they go to university, they take a gap year. And in that gap year, they devote it to learning Arabic and Islamic studies and other things. So we are trying to develop a course now to capture those young people in their gap years.
Okay.
Hello. So thank you very much for a wonderful talk. It has been really helpful for me. Uh, I have a question regarding parents who are living abroad, especially in Western culture. I feel, as you said, that we should try to teach them everything in the light of Quran, like what you talked about, Newton's law and everything. My daughter, she's 8 years old, and often she comes home. I tell her that I try to do the same with her. Like I try to tell her everything in the light of Quran and what our religion tells us. But the problem is that when she has a lot of other Muslim friends also, their families, they are not so practicing, and they are like they're following the mainstream culture, as you said. So I don't want to tell her that her friends, like her fellow Muslim friends, are bad or someone else is bad, because I don't want to make her an extremist. So how do I deal this problem? That should I tell them that that others, they are telling what they are telling her is like they are wrong and only we are right. I just want to make it in a very subtle way, that she doesn't point finger on anyone else, rather than she understands the difference and does not make it a big thing. Like, you know what I mean, if you
Yeah,
could understand. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sister, there are two issues here. One is Muslims who practice Islam and Muslims who don't practice Islam, and then there are schools of thought differences. So, do you
Yes.
mean the schools of thought, or some are just bad Muslims
No,
and
no, no. I just don't want it to make it bad Muslims or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
thing is that if I give you an example, like there is one family who tries to raise their children with like within the Islamic framework, like halal, haram, and everything. Then there is another family who follow few things, who are like their parents are practicing, but they are not so concerned about their children. They are letting their children expose themselves to social media. They are not restricting them. On the other hand, we are restricting our children with their screen times and everything. So how do they are not that bad? The other family is not worse. I'm not calling them worse.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
no, I
it's
understand. So,
yeah.
sister, I think what we need to do is do the tarbiyah of our children in a way that they don't develop arrogance and
Exactly.
they
That's what
don't
I,
pick on
yeah,
other people.
yeah,
So they should also understand that different people are different stages, and
yeah,
they a different knowledge of Islam and
yeah,
practice. That if we find somebody who is less practicing,
yeah,
we should do dua for them, and we should help them and inspire them towards the right way. Yeah, and that should be done gently and gradually, and keeping our friendship with them. Yeah. So the wisdom, this is where the hikmah comes in. That hikmah has to be taught in parallel to knowledge. Otherwise, knowledge on its own does develop arrogance, and that creates tensions amongst people and friends.
and this is just a very small example. Like I do hijab, and my other friends, they do not cover up themselves. But I will never say that they are bad Muslims, because they are praying, they are fasting, they are giving charity and everything. So as my daughter is like really young, she doesn't understand all these things. So one day she came to me and she said that, oh, Mama, that auntie, isn't she Muslim? Why isn't she covering up herself? So how do I deal such questions? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So basically, this is what the Prophet ﷺ taught in them, is that we need to try to follow as closely as possible what Allah says. And we need to be taught that humans, they are following Allah in to different degrees. And we, like I said, we if we know we are right and this is what Allah says, we need to rationally convince our children, so that when they engage in discussions and dialogues with other people, they understand the reasons why some people do this, and those who do not do this, how we can help them in that process. Yeah. So I know this is the case, like my own daughters, they wore their hijab, and most of their friends, because they are Muslim, non-Muslim friend, many Muslim girls did not wear the hijab, but they did not feel in any way. It's because that home culture, that understanding was developed. So they had confidence in what they did, and they also felt that they needed to help the other girls and support them and encourage them. Yeah. So that's the only way. There is no other way, but tensions, arrogance should all be avoided in the process.
Yes, thank you. And I have a last question that is very important. I've been looking for this answer for so long. Exactly what you said, that we all have our own level of being a Muslim and following our religion. And now, when our children, as we are living in Europe, and our children are going to like European schools, so they have, when they have like non-Muslim friends, so how do we help them? How do we tell them that uh, we are not like them? So how, because I feel that it is our problem that we are living here. So it's not their problem that they are born here. It's not their fault. So how do we tell them without making them arrogant that if we are Muslims, the others are bad? Because we cannot do this to them. So how do we deal this with this situation?
Yeah, sister, I don't know about other places, but in England, you know, our children, they sort of go from a very nursery stage when they're 3, 4 years of age to the mainstream schools, vast majority of them, and they have children, from immigrant families, Sikh families, Hindu families, Muslim families. So the children actually grow up living in this very multicultural ways where they know everybody's different, everybody's, yeah. So they do develop a mindset of of tolerance, but also understanding that people have different religions, they have different values. So we've not found this as an issue here within our society, and children really begin to understand. Like I was at a school, I started from the infant school in the 1964, 65. I was very young at that time, and I had Jamaican friends, Sikh friends, Hindu friends, and somebody's wearing a turban, somebody's but we never felt any different. We realized at a young age that we eat halal, so even from that young age, that we pray, we do these things, and they don't. And but when we were friends doing playing football, other things, we didn't bring these things. Yeah, it's only when you are teenagers and at that age you begin to then articulate your faith, and you get involved in discussions and dialogues, and sometimes they get involved in fights as well with people of other, and that should be avoided. Dialogue, yes. Yeah, give them the confidence, the solid knowledge, understanding, and saying that Allah sent prophet after prophet. After the prophet, some people corrupted his teaching, deviated, mixed Allah's guidance with all other things. So we have the Quran, and we should follow it to the best of our ability, and we should also help other people coming towards this way. This kind of dialogue, friendship is the only way in that context.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It is
Um,
really helpful. Thank you.
yeah, I have few questions from the chat. Somebody has asked what to do if the teens are too much influenced by the peers and school environment.
Yeah. Sister, this is a problem, and we faced it, within our communities. Many of our young people ended up in drugs, in prison, in music, culture, fashion, all these things are there. Now, when I look at all of these youth, one factor comes out very clearly. The parents never paid them attention. Yeah, from a young age. And they did not connect their children to the mosques, to the madrasas, to the, yeah. So in all cases, 100, yes, there were some ulamas, who did their best, to help their children, but the peer pressure was so. But they, but these are rare cases. These are rare cases. So I feel the parents should do a critical reflection over themselves, and it's never too late, even if they're 14, 15, 16 years of age. Try your best, slowly, gently, but do not disown them. Do not throw them out of your houses, because they will then become even worse. Yeah, find more better ways, use their friends who are good, other youth who may be good, to work on the, because they will listen to them more. So there are different ways which we can use, but never ever give up hope. Yeah, and we must keep on working. It's never too late, but the ideal way is to start on a child as soon as they're born, they're young, because by the age of 4, 5, 6 years of age, their mind, heart, everything is shaped, and then you can put them in any environment, they'll emerge strong.
There's another question. How to plant the vision in youth? Yeah.
Yes, sister, I reflect over myself as well. When we were young, we used to be sitting in the mosque, and these elders used to come and give us talks, and we used to be daydreaming and not really listening and so on. So elder after elder just giving talks, giving talks. We learnt a few things, but the iman never became deep and so on. Now what happened here in the UK Islamic Mission tried its best, but the youth work never took off. Then Ustad Khurumrad, may Allah have mercy on his soul, he wrote to the UK I am Shura and said, look, this is, you will not be able to develop youth that way. So he said, give them independent, and we created the Young Muslims. The Mission Shura agreed with that. Now, the only difference of the Young Muslims and the youth group before was that we felt responsibility. We had to stand on our own feet. We had to generate our own funds, our own projects. No elder will ever help us. So we had to give the talks. We had to give everything. Suddenly you see Young Muslim, within 2 years, we have had over 1,500 members, and we had 40, 50 branches across the country. Okay, and the difference was Ustad Khurumrad planted a vision. He said that, and the vision he gave was this, that Tariq bin Ziyad, he came to Gibraltar, he burnt his ships, and he said to his companions, there's the enemy and there's the sea. And he said they all chose that we're going to take Islam forward. Islam came to the southern border of France. They would have taken over the whole of Europe had the Khalifa not called them back. Yeah. So he gave us such inspiring stories of people who gave their lives for Islam, and how Islam reached China, Indians, and this companion who went as far as Morocco, and he said, oh Allah, if I know there's land on the other side of this, I will go and take your deen. They were inspired by. So he planted this vision that the Ajam world and the Arab world, will be under the rule of God. Yeah, and you must take this dawah to the four corners of Britain, and Britain must become permanent just for Islam, just as Egypt and Pakistan, and where the majority became Muslims. Yeah, and that is your mission, that is your goal in life, and we just try to move forward. Yeah, so there was no elders involved. We developed public speaking. We brought out a magazine. We had to do everything ourselves. That developed our academic skills, our public speaking skills, social skills, organizing skills, everything. When we were spoon fed and sitting there listening, we never developed. So it's the approach, the pedagogical approaches you use. If we want to safeguard our youth, you need to empower them, guide them, support them, but let them, they will make mistakes. Yeah, but they will learn a lot in the process. But that vision needs to be planted at a very young. Allah will question us on the day of judgment. These people will say they lived amongst us, but they never shared his deen with us. Yeah, we will be questioned. So all these things, first of all made us really worried and frightened, and we felt this sense of responsibility. Yeah, so that vision has carried us forward all these years.
I have a few more questions, but Anisa has been waiting. Anisa, you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salaam.
My name is Anisa. I'm from Pakistan, and thank you so much, in fact, for this beautiful session. In fact, I am also working as a teacher, and I am working as for coach for early teen years. So it was the subject really I'm so interested about, and I have seen so many people, they are talking about the personality development, but they are not working for teenagers or for early teenagers. So this is in fact my personal career, a part of my life, as I am a coach for early teen years. And this was a program when I started and I started working on it. The people were making, a little fun for this. You are a teacher, it's okay, fine, but how you will coach the a kid, a boy, a girl who is 10 to 13 years of age? They don't need any coaching. But I feel, but I was sure about it. The students are any early teen years. They also need some coaching. They need about their personality development coaching sessions. They need a proper guideline according to their age. So I started a program, and I started working on it. And your today's session was so even I am unable to explain what I feel during this session, because this was the basic essence I was working for and I was looking for. Thank you so much for this, and thank you, Memuna, for sharing the link for this. uh, I'm sure, and I have one thing last. In fact, I have found Mr. Zahid Parvez on Facebook and LinkedIn right now, and I have sent a friend request as well, because it is it is a start of a journey for me. Thank you so much.
No, sister, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. That was good. Yeah. Sorry, I went there. My battery was going to go. Yeah, I switched.
Thank you so much, Anisa, for the feedback. We have two more questions. How to help a kid when they have gotten into some bad habits like sexual relationships or drug addiction? What to do if we have Pakistani tradition at home?
Yeah. Sister, sometimes parents make things worse by trying to stop some of the wrong things which children do by force. And that then makes them rebel even more. So that's why this strong communication with the children is so important. Open, frank environment where you, even if they're involved in alcohol, bad things as well, that parent should talk to them. They should think through the consequences of what they are doing. And once they understand the consequences, that is powerful enough for them to leave many of the things. But if the boy and the girl has got to such a stage where they will continue, then you should push them towards marriage, and so that they stay within the moral framework. Yeah. So it really requires each case will be different. It requires a lot of hikmat, sabr, gentleness. Sometimes parents do need to be firm as well, but with good reasoning, rational arguments, support. And if we make the children think long term about the impact it's going to have on their children, on their future links to Islam and all those things, there's many people realize they do come out of these things. Yeah. But if it's gone to such an extent, then I think parents should then encourage them, support them to get married so that they stay within the moral framework.
Okay, so another question is, somebody has asked that they did not start the storytelling sessions and the whole process from the beginning, and now the kids are not ready to listen to stories. So what can they do to restart that process at home?
Yeah. So what we did, I think Sheikh Abdul Hamid Wahid, I don't know if you've heard of him, Abdul Hamid Wahid. He's written a number of books. One of the book is written in 3 volumes. It's called The Stories of the Companions. And these stories, when you read them, they're not written, like a factual, they were born this time. They're written in a novel style, in a very sort of inspiring story method. And what we did, we realized we started to work on the youth, and these youth had very little tarbiyah from their parents, and they've really gone to such an extent. But we spoke to the parents and said, look, at least push them to come to the mosque, and then we will look after them. So what we did, I think this we did for over a year. We actually got different people to read a story each week of the companions. And initially they didn't show much interest, but after a couple of weeks, they saw how inspiring these stories were. They started to listen, and many of them became very active workers of our youth group. Yeah. So then they moved towards learning other things and so on. So, stories like, that's what I said, they are very, very useful in nurturing a mindset, because they are full of values and vision and mission and sacrifices, and how these people stood against opposition and their society and their culture. It gives them that inner strength. So, and that is not the only way. The other way is we got them involved in sports in the mosque initially. We had snooker table, we had weight training, we had all kind, even for girls, we had these karate classes and so on. So, the mosque should be like a community center where men, women, and children feel part of, and all kinds of activities. So it's a collective responsibility, and we have to use different methods. Yeah, so even if the teenagers are given no guidance from their homes, we need to find ways. We cannot shun this responsibility as a community.
Okay, there's another question. How to balance the two opposite environments children have, culture at home and society outside? Does it even matter?
Yeah, like I said, our youth are faced with an extra challenge, and that is they have huge pressure from society to be like them, and they have a huge pressure from the family and the community to follow Islam. So, like I said, many of them are now developing these confusion in their identity. They're becoming inconsistent, and they're showing different behaviors in front of their parents and different amongst their friends. So, and that shows there's lack of tarbiyah, lack of knowledge and understanding. So what you need to do, the only thing is not to try to protect them externally, but try to develop these inner mechanisms in themselves to protect themselves. Yeah, and that is developing this deeper faith, connection with God, connection with the Islamic moral values and so on. That is the only thing which can really safeguard. Otherwise, they will be pushed in this direction and pushed in that direction. But once they have their inner strength, then they will go in their own direction. Yeah. So that is the key, is this parental communication and tarbiyah, a close attention to the young people.
Okay, there are no more questions in the chat, but I want to ask one question. It was a wonderful session and I learned so many things, but the things you mentioned, they were perfect. Like, we have to create an environment, we have to be friends with the children and all these things. But then there are people who were not raised in a very religiously sound or by religiously inclined parents, and now they are parents themselves and they have teenagers, they have children. What can they do to side by side do their own personal growth and then also raise children who are religiously inclined and they have good tarbiyah? Because I find it very difficult, people who don't have a sound knowledge from their own homes, but now they're parents and they also have to train themselves, they also have to train their environment and the kids. What can you advise for such people? Like, what can they do? Because they have to fight on so many grounds.
Sister, we have many new Muslims. They've come from very different environments, But when they become Muslims, and even their children were born before they accepted Islam, when you look at them, you find a lot of solutions there, where they try to find support from the community to help them. So what we need to do is, each parent should not feel it's their only personal responsibility, but the community. There's a saying, it takes a community to raise a child. Yeah. So if we are an ummah, wherever we go in small communities, we support each other. Like, for example, if my children don't listen to me, they may listen to you. Yeah. So that's why giving them an environment where the whole community is working together in different ways, then if one family is deficient in any way, the others, the rest of the community can fill those weaknesses. Yeah, address those weaknesses. So it's a collective effort. It cannot be done on your own. Yeah. So this is why wherever Muslims go, they're supposed to establish prayer. What does that mean? That means they immediately establish a group life. Muslims to live on their own, minding their own business and saying, my problems are mine, I'm not going to share them with others. No, it will not help the poor. Yeah. My problems are your problems, and your problems are my problems, and we have to address them together. And that's the ummah spirit. If that spirit is not there, we'll all struggle in our own ways, and slowly we'll lose our generations.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we are done with the questions. I want to thank you on behalf of the Dedicated Parents team and everyone who was present here. It was a wonderful session, and I think everybody can vouch for this. I will now pass the mic to Maimuna, who is actually the CEO of Dedicated Parents. She would like to make some announcements. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Uzma. I would like to thank you, Dr. Zahid Parvez, for giving your precious time to our platform and giving such a good resolution to our problems in a very holistic way. And I would like to thank Uzma for moderating this program, and all other members from Dedicated Squad and Dedicated Board of Directors for making this program possible. And इसके बाद हम कुछ अनाउंसमेंट्स जो करेंगे वो ये हैं कि आप डेडिकेटेड पेरेंट्स की टीम को ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, आप हमारे मेंबर बन सकते हैं, और आप इसके लिए किसी भी एडमिन या फिर जिनसे आपको इनविटेशन मिला उनको आप राब्ता कर सकते हैं, और इंशाल्लाह उसमें फिर आपको गाइड किया जाएगा। और दूसरा, हमारे जो प्रोग्राम्स हैं अपकमिंग, उनमें अगले माह की एक वर्कशॉप है, और उसके अलावा हमारा एक पेरेंटिंग कोर्स है जो इंशाल्लाह नवंबर में स्टार्ट होने लगा है। तो इंशाल्लाह आप सबसे उम्मीद करते हैं कि आप लोग उस टाइम में अपने आप को अवेलेबल रखें और उसको ज्वाइन करें, और वो दोनों लोगों के लिए होगा, मतलब मैन और वुमेन दोनों के लिए होगा। तो इंशाल्लाह आप लोगों से उम्मीद करती हूँ कि आप लोग उसको भरपूर तरीके से ज्वाइन करने की कोशिश करेंगे। और थैंक यू सर, I would like to thank you again. So it's very good to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. It was good experience. Yeah.
Thank you. We can read the dua. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Candy.